Good morning. Thank you for coming to attend this press conference From the Land of the Moon. While the photographers are going about their work, I'd like to introduce the people at the rostrum. On the far left, or my left, we have the producer. We'll wait for Alex then.
Non, mais j'attends que tout le monde soit là, pardon. J'avais pas vu qu'il n'était pas là.
Sinon, ça va, vous? D'accord, c'est bien. Qui est sur Périscope, là? Personne. Vous êtes sur Périscope, là, non?
We're just waiting for the final member of the cast to come.
Léo, vous l'avez perdu en route?
Qui? Alex? Moi, j'aimais Périscope.
Les gens, tu te filmes et tout?
Ah non, pas moi, non, je regardais ça.
Ah non, ah oui, tu vas.
De nuit debout et tout, je regardais. Dans les manifs.
Bon, je comprends.
Je vais prendre un peu de tête, parce que je ne suis pas très sensible. Je veux bien le
C'est des problèmes.
Donc je recommence les présentations.
So I'll start again. On the far left,
À ma gauche, à l'extrême gauche, le producteur.
we have the producer,
Bonjour.
Alain Attal, who's accustomed to coming to Cannes. He comes on a regular basis with Guillaume Canet, Maïwen, and films by Nicole Garcia. He's faithfully produced Nicole Garcia's films since Charlie Says. And then we have the scriptwriter, Jacques Fieschi, who's worked with PIERRES, Benoît Jacques, and many others, and very faithfully with Nicole Garcia, because I believe it's the the 8th time you've worked with her. Next to him, we have the Spanish actor, Alex Brendemühl, who we saw in Cannes in 2013 in a film at Un Certain Regard, Le Médecin de Famille. You play the part of Dr. Mengele. On my left, Louis Garrel, who's appeared for the 6th time in a film competing in Cannes, if I've counted the numbers correctly, since Les Chansons d'Amour up to Montroi last year. Next to him, we have an actress who's won an Oscar, 2 Caesars, and this is the 5th consecutive year she's been in Cannes in competition since 2012 with Rust and Bones, Macbeth, Inter Alia, not to mention films not in competition, including The Little Prince. And she'll be back in the middle of next week for a 2nd film in competition. And at the middle of the table, we have the actress, director Nicole Garcia, who's been to Cannes several times as an actress. And this is the 3rd time she's come to Cannes for a film in competition, following Charlie Says. And, of course, the adversary. Nico, the first question is for you. In the novel by Milena Agus, what made you really want to adapt it? We'll talk later about the adaptation of the book by Milena Agus. When I read the novel, I loved the female character. She touched me no end because she combined a number of things. She's complex, contradictory. She combines all these things together. She is also a bit wild. Her body is very expressive. The female desire is very present in her, yet at the same time, there's this mystic of love. It's something that is all mixed together. She is in quest of the absolute. That enchanted me. In contemporary society, we tend to fragment our desires, our ambitions, yet in her case, what's really troubling is that there is no derivative. She just wants one single thing, and she's prepared to go all the way to get it. This quest for what is absolute means that she refuses any form of submission, any form of constraint. The film has a secret one cannot reveal. We won't reveal it here, although, of course, you have seen the film. I want to speak cautiously for the sake of the wider public. You have that character, therefore. And I like the men in the film as well. I find them courageous, quite silent, sparing in terms of expressing their emotions. The husband and the other male character are sort of different faces of love. So we had to do a lot of adaptation when we decided to use the novel. Set in Sardinia. We relocated the film in France. It takes place in the 50s. But I'm sure you'll have questions that you'll want to ask me later on. I don't want to monopolize the microphone.
Vous teniez tellement à Marion Cotillard que vous l'avez attendue
You waited for Marion Cotillard for a whole year because you really wanted to have her in your film. Why Marion Cotillard specifically? You were sure that she was just the right person? Well, I think you have to see the film. It was worth waiting for a year. She was just the right person. Marion remembers, I've forgotten that a bit, but I spoke to her about the book quite a long time ago when I first read the book. Then time went on, I made another film in the meantime. It was a complex adaptation, this one. But the book haunted me, and so I got back to her with a script. She liked the script. She liked the way we dealt with the character, Garrel. I don't know who else could have portrayed this character. I think it's only Marion who could convey this sensuality, not just in the love scenes, but when things aren't working out very well. My feeling is that her body is so very expressive. Also, these sets. The character is a sort of a geography in herself. She is a field of lavender, the Alps. I was deeply attached to this character because she was a way of conveying all these landscapes. Marion, you said you couldn't say no. You hesitated to say yes because you were very busy, but you couldn't turn this down. What touched you most in this character? It wasn't a problem of having too much work. I'd been in quite a lot of films. I had a very heavy schedule, and when Nicole offered me the film, I was just finishing another film, and I said I didn't have time to read the script until I'd finished this other film. Quite frankly, I wanted to have a bit of time for myself. I immediately told Alain that I would read the script about 2 months later, but that I wouldn't be available to shoot the film for the next 12 months. It was actually more than a year. I needed time for myself, and Nicole was very kind and very gracious. She said, fine, I'll wait. We met a couple of years ago. Nicole spoke to me about the book. At the time, I hadn't read it myself. When I finished the film I was busy with, when they approached me for this specific film, I started reading the script. I hoped I wouldn't like it, because Well, in fact, she had agreed to wait for me, but I didn't feel like saying yes because I realized that if I said yes, I'd start working on the film in my mind despite everything. So I read a couple of pages of the script and then I closed the script because I realized I would really like the film. So I thought, well, should I pretend I didn't like the script or should I just continue reading the script and accept the fact that I really loved it? It took me about 2 months finally to say, yes, I'm game. I didn't feel like saying no, but I didn't want to say yes either. I thought maybe she'll get tired of waiting and she'll turn to somebody else, and that would indicate that the film really wasn't for me. I thought I would count on fate, destiny. And then we met in Cannes 2 years ago, I think. My agent said to Nicole that I didn't want to say yes, but I did in the end. I said, okay. And that's when everything began. But we shot exactly a year later. What touches you? Why do you like the character, Gabrielle? I'm always attracted to things I haven't yet really explored. She has such passion. I was moved by this story of a girl who was imprisoned in a given setting without any respect for what she really wanted. It could create a kind of madness because you have to deny what you really are. She doesn't deny what she is, but other people don't give her any support whatsoever in terms of her aspirations for love, for life, the way she conceives it. She has this animal instinct in terms of existence and life, the way she wants to lead her life. And I was keenly interested, therefore, by the topic
qu'on rencontre encore aujourd'hui et qu'on va rencontrer encore pour longtemps.
It's the kind of thing that can happen time again. Often you don't enable people to fly with their own wings. People are deprived of their own personal freedom, their desire to live the life they really want to lead. And that can make people fall ill. Jacques, what was most difficult in terms of adaptation?
C'est-à-dire qu'un livre toujours ou bien on en fait une adaptation très fidèle, très littérale.
Well, either you do a literal adaptation of a book, and that may not be very interesting, or else you try to see what the book proposes, intimates. So we have this love story, the passion in this woman's life, and we decided to follow, track the characters and create a sort of a drama around the main features of the book. We needed to stand back from the book while remaining fairly loyal to the actual substance of the book. That is the affection, the love, the sentiment in the book. We're very complementary, Nicole and I. We have an amorous relationship through the characters we follow, we draw, and we love.
Bonjour, Hugues Daillé, RTBF.
Hugues Daillé, RTBF, Brussels. I have a question for Marion Cotillard. Marion, you've just said that when you sense you're going to accept a given part, that you start working on it deep within yourself. What kind of work do you do? You also said you like exploring things you haven't yet had an opportunity to explore. Could you perhaps explain to us what kind of preparatory work you do? How do you move into the character, It is a story that takes place in the past, and playing the part of someone who lived in the past entails behaving in a different way, adopting different social mores and customs. So how did you go about identifying with this character? When I agree to play in a film, a whole process is triggered, almost despite myself. It's a bit like when you fall in love with someone. Even if you don't want to think consciously about it, you think about it all the time because there's something that links you with this other person. So to answer the first part of your question, you have this initial work, the process gets underway, and then you have the conscious work, something that you decide on purpose to do. I don't have any specific method. Everything depends on the film. Preparatory work takes shape on the basis of what you have in the film. It also depends on the director with whom you're going to rehearse. There are directors who you talk to a lot, some directors you don't need to talk a lot because there's a sort of an automatic connection. You understand each other without actually having to resort to words. And then you do your own personal work. You think about the character to try to lend substance to the character, give the character a real soul. Of course, you have to try to understand the character. That's fairly obvious. Then you have your own ways and means of embodying the character. You try to delve into the character, make the character come alive for other people. To make the character come alive beyond words, you need to understand and build up the personality. In some films, I need to learn about the character's taste in music. I need to imagine the way the person smiles. I have to imagine the way the person moves, walks, what happened in that person's childhood. That's very important when I play an act, a given character. When I don't have that information available, I imagine it, I create it. At the same time, I let my imagination go. I let it run wild so that I can reach out and become part of the story. And then part of the story comes and reaches out to me and provides me with certain keys, things that I might not necessarily have thought about myself. It's hard to describe the process because you sort of open up to somebody. It's like a love story. You open up to a different person, another person, and bit by bit, things come into place. You start understanding more and more about that other person. You discover things. I don't know whether I've really answered your question. It's somewhat mysterious, put it that way.
Question deuxièmement, mademoiselle.
Karen Batt of Huffington Post. C'est pour vous. Non, je le parle en français. Okay.
I'll be putting my question in French. I loved the way you filmed female desire. It was very different, but it was a sublime way of filming things. Two questions. In terms of Adèle H. or Madame Bovary, you've radically changed the way female desire is depicted. In this film, there's an education to desire as well. At the end, she has received this education. She learns how to love. That's a big change. It's very positive. So she's not really mad. How do you view these changes you've introduced in terms of the depiction of female desire compared with the other films that I mentioned earlier on? And what do you think about education, this education to learn about desire, to learn how to love? There are a lot of female destinies that have been written about in literature. You have Madame Bovary and other stories of women. And you have this depiction of passion and love. Gabriel is actually quite different. That's the substance of your question. Well, compared with Adele H, well, Adele H has a kind of a passion. But Gabrielle, when she falls in love with André Sauvage, is not just a mad girl who grows attached to someone who wants to have nothing to do with her. Something really happens. He did look at her. They looked deep in each other's eyes. Madame Bovary is something different. She talks a lot about boredom. Female desire can be depicted in a very Romanesque way. Sometimes, however, things are more sudden, more brutal. First of all, you have her body, then I'll talk about Stone's disease, in fact. This disease she has, which is a sort of a symptom. It's as though her body, and you can see this in the film, every time she suffers these crises, it's as though her body was depicting what she feels in her mind. Her whole body reacts much more powerfully than the other characters you mentioned. Her body, this female desire, is really highlighted in this film. Why don't you chip in? You talked about Adele H. There is a reference to her in the film, in fact, and we thought about that sequence, we thought about Truffaut. It's very moving to see the same dramatic principle illustrated by Isabelle Adjani and in this film, Marion Cotillard. Adele H. is sort of walled in within herself. She loves someone who doesn't love her at all, who runs away from her. So she is imprisoned in a place where there's no way out. Madame Bovary is trapped in a dream world. So it's somewhat different. I would like to answer the second part of your question very briefly. There is a form of education in the film. The person who filled in 15 years of her life will finally be discovered. You have love as a passion, ideal love, and then you have the more modest, silent love, which she will learn quite late on. That doesn't actually exist in the book. That was part of our adaptation. It's like a wife who only gradually learns to come to love her husband.
This is Iqbal from Daily Pratham Alo, Bangladesh. And question to Marion Cotillard. Very nice acting, powerful acting. If I am the judge, I want to give you the Oscar and every award in the world. Very powerful acting, Gabriela. And I have a question too. Why do you think Gabriela, when she's upset, she always ran away through the forest? You think nature have the power to give condolence and tranquility, you know? When Gabriela is upset, she always fled through the forest, I think. Why? Is there any special reason for that? Thank you.
Pourquoi, à chaque fois qu'elle est blessée, elle court dans les bois? Elle fuit dans les bois.
C'est son truc.
En français, ouais. Enfin, comme tu veux.
Je pense que c'est ce côté animal qui
Well, it's her animal instinct.
Peut-être que c'est plus une question pour Nicole d'ailleurs, mais
Maybe it's Nicole who should answer the question. I think she has this very powerful animal instinct.
Et cet endroit infini que peut être la forêt.
And that's what makes her run to the forest, which is a sort of an infinite area, an endless, boundless area. Yet the forest at the same time can be quite violent. She's just running away. But why does she run away to the forest?
Voilà, tu vois, je te laisse répondre.
Because she likes the forest.
Parce qu'elle vit à côté de la forêt.
And she lives next to a forest.
Elle aurait été dans le désert, elle aurait couru dans le désert.
If she had lived next to a desert, she would have run away to the desert. And when she's near the sea, she runs towards the sea. She just runs away.
Vicente Batalla, l'emissione Il Settimo
Vicente
Vicio della Radio Nazionale Spagnola.
Batalla, Spanish radio. Congratulations on the film. I'd like to put a question to Alex.
Vous avez fait un travail très retenu. Votre rôle, on a parlé
You're very restrained in the way you play your part compared with Marion. Of course, there are reasons that account for this. You're waiting for your wife to love you, and also you're not in your own country because you lost the war on the Republican side. How did you prepare for this part? How did you manage to learn to be so restrained?
C'est un peu ma spécialité. Je joue toujours j'ai le visage le plus mystérieux du cinéma espagnol. Comme ça,
I have the most mysterious face in Spanish, the Spanish cinema. And maybe that's why I was selected to play the Spaniard who ran away from the war and is trying to forget the horrors of the Civil War. He ended up in France at the time of the Second World War. I watched documentaries on the war. It's very important, of course, to understand the background of a person like that. My great-grandfather also fled to France during the war. He hid in France as a Republican.
Quelquefois, on cherche dans l'intérieur de chacun, on cherche dans l'histoire, la biographie de
So
chacun.
I looked up these things in history. I looked up various biographies. It wasn't very difficult to understand this feeling of total solitude, the mystery. He's hiding something. You don't really know what it is, but he doesn't seem able to talk about his past. He keeps saying he's starting a new life. He wants to forget everything about the past. There are prospects for a better life in France. He's also going up the social ladder. It's like a social promotion. He will have the opportunity to found a family and really be someone. He's searching for a new identity. Somehow, he is very coherent, very consistent. He upholds his ideas, his political ideas, even if people evolve and change. In the end, he ends up quite middle class, whereas at the beginning, he's just a worker. So he starts at a given level on the social ladder, and through this marriage, which was an arranged marriage, of course, he can see all sorts of doors opening. It's in his interests to get married at the beginning. And at the end, in fact, it's love that prevails. It's love. Love for this woman, the passion he feels for this woman, the desire to save her, and to ensure that she doesn't keep falling down. In fact, he realizes she'll never totally belong to him. I found the character quite extraordinary. It's quite a lesson in generosity and absolutely pure, untainted love. It's extremely powerful. It's quite extraordinary. You don't find that in real life.
Ahora voy a decir lo mismo en español.
And now I'm
Hola,
going to say the
buenos
same
días.
thing in Spanish,
No, un
says
saludo a los amigos del séptimo edificio,
Alex.
gracias.
No, in fact, he's just sending out his greetings to all his friends in the Seventh Art. He's a wonderful character. He's a kind of ideal. Maybe all men would like to resemble him.
Pourquoi vous avez choisi Alex?
Why did you choose Alex?
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené vers lui?
What attracted you to Alex as an actor?
Qu'est-ce qui m'a amené vers Alex?
Why did I choose Alex?
Quand on voit le film, on voit que.
Well, when you see the film, you can understand why he's good in the part. The casting wasn't all that easy. I was looking for someone to portray this character. Contrary to Gabriel, he was less distinctive, the character, so we worked a lot. In my home, we did a lot of improvisations. I played the part of Gabriel, and one day I said to him, I called him up in Barcelona, and I said, well, if you want, I'd love you to be in the film. I got along very well with all the actors in the film. Marion talked about the way she worked on the character. I was very fortunate. For me, it's really important for actors to place their trust in you. They need to just let themselves go when acting. You have the actors, the director, you have everyone in the crew, and it's important for everyone to come together and work well together. So we didn't need to use a lot of words. We had the script, what had already been written down. The scenes were all depicted. The actors could see how powerful certain scenes were. And then, once we were all on this set, I'm an actress as well, after all. I don't believe all that much in psychology. What I try to do is to just show through facial expressions how I'm reacting. And the actors can sense all this, and then they transcend the situation. I watch the actors during the shooting, during the editing, and I would like to thank them very much because the end result is excellent. Congratulations. I really was deeply moved by the film. Marion, I have a question for you. I find it difficult to understanding the real core of the film. There's so much in it. It talks about a woman, you have this passion between you and Louis. The film is deeply moving also in terms of the relationship you have with the character portrayed by Alex, and it evolves. At the beginning, we think, well, things aren't going to go very far. But then you become deeply touched and moved. Could you talk to us about this change, this evolution in her feelings for her husband? Gabriel is a very special person. She lets herself be swept along with life, complies with the decisions taken by her family, but at the same time, while she's sort of in a prison, she does take her own decisions. It's as though she accepted the decisions taken by others, but in a very rebellious way. She's enclosed in a kind of deep rebellion. She didn't take the decision to get married, but she comes around to it, and then she complies with it, as though she was the one who'd made up her mind to do this. For her, it's a way of escaping from the family. And she doesn't have the strength to run away from the family all by herself, so she accepts the decision. right at the beginning, and as from the start, she looks at this man in a fairly ambiguous way. She's not in love with him at all. She doesn't want to have sex with him. She uses him, in fact. She takes the decision to use him to acquire a certain experience, except that she doesn't really know him, and she doesn't realize to what extent he's a very generous man. He begins to fall in love with his wife. Correct me if I'm wrong. To start with, he's fascinated by the woman, but he's not wildly in love with her. So the relationship gradually builds as time goes by. These two lost souls come together because of the events in their lives. These people are very different, they're very special, they're very beautiful people, and therefore they come together and create this wonderful story. I don't know whether I've explained the situation. Also, she marries him, so she won't be sent to a psychiatric hospital.
Question au premier rang.
Pierre Vavasseur du journal Le Parisien aujourd'hui en France.
Le Parisien, France.
Moi, je suis bouleversé par ce film.
I was deeply moved by the film. You've made a beautiful classical film, Nicole. I have a question to Marion. It's interesting. You said you need to imagine the childhood of the characters you're going to be portraying. Why? Is that linked to your own childhood? You were helped when you were a child to fly with your own wings. Yes, of course, I need to know what happened in a given character's childhood. I believe that this provides any number of keys to understanding the person. Each and every one of us have been shaped by what happened in our childhood when we're very innocent, when we're like sponges, and we want to learn and discover the world. Up until what age are you innocent? It depends on the person. After about a year and a half, I think I was no longer totally naive. Sorry, I interrupted you. I like this idea of innocent children, but I'm not sure how innocent they are and how long it lasts. A baby, perhaps, is innocent. It's the time when you don't take decisions for yourself. It's the world that carries you, and you remain totally innocent. And through what you experience in childhood, you become a real person. That's what shapes you as a person. I was thinking of something else. There are lots of children around me, and sometimes they're perfectly horrible. So you've been referring to this magnificent innocence in childhood. Yes, but there is a lot of innocence. Children may be terrifying, but they're often totally innocent at the same time. The second part of the question. I never reread or reconsider my own childhood. On the contrary, I'm trying to understand a different person. I don't try to establish a parallel with my own personal life. I was very fortunate, however. My parents let me do as I liked, let me become really independent as a person. So even if I still have to work on certain things, I feel that I'm a very free woman. But Gabrielle isn't really. She has a tremendous sense of liberty within her, she can't be mastered, brought under control. I can't find the right words. She has this indestructible inner sense of freedom. And that's what I really loved in this character, and I sensed it right away. Louis, how do you like working on your characters? And in the specific case of this injured officer, what did you do to prepare the part?
Marion racontaient leur rencontre.
Well, Nicole and Marion.
On aurait dû du Roland Barthes. Toi, tu disais, je voulais.
Well, it sounded like Roland Barthes. It's as though they'd fallen in love with their character. It was very beautiful what you said.
Non, c'est vrai. Alors, elles se sont tournées autour, et tout ça, ça avait l'air vachement horizontal entre elles, alors que moi, c'était vraiment un homme qui galère. C'est-à-dire, elle m'a appelé, et elle m'a dit, oui, je ne sais pas. J'ai dit, oui, je ne sais pas quoi.
I don't know. And I said, you don't know what? She said, I don't know. I don't know whether you can do this. And I said, well, I don't know either. Maybe you know. And she said, I don't know either.
Je ne sais pas vraiment.
I don't really know.
Je voulais te voir.
But I wanted to see you.
Au fond, là, je sais vraiment pas, tu vois. Alors,
but I really don't know. So I said, well, I don't know either.
On se rappelle.
So we called each other up again.
Une espèce de mélange entre quelqu'un qui sait
Nicole often knows more than anyone else what she wants, but sometimes more than anyone else, she doesn't know at all what she wants. So we saw each other again. I learned a bit more. She said, well, I have a clearer idea. And I said, well, call me up again when things are really clear in your mind. So at the beginning, I read the script. I found it very beautiful.
Mais au bout d'un moment donné, ça accroche, parce que Nicole, elle accroche, parce qu'elle a beaucoup de...
Nicole
vous le voyez bien, comment elle a de personnalité.
Has a very strong personality.
Et puis le cinéma, pour elle, c'est comme une sorte
The cinema, for her,
je sais pas, c'est un mouvement affectif comme ça énorme.
Is based on huge affection.
Donc j'ai vraiment galéré.
She still didn't know, apparently. So it was really rough. I was having a bad time. With Alex, it didn't take as long, but it was really rough for me. She said, Louis, you're a bit fat.
Je dis, mais Nicole, oui.
I said, well, Nicole, yes.
Elle m'a dit, tu es gros, tu es gros.
She said, you're fat, you're fat.
Tu es vraiment gros. Je dis, oui, mais je peux changer.
And I said, well, I can change. I can change, Nicole. She said, well, try and change. And I went back 2 weeks later. She said, you're still a bit fat.
Donc à la fin, voilà.
And in the end, well, there we are.
Comme je devais faire un type sur son lit de mort et qu'elle m'avait vraiment fatigué pendant les essais, mais c'était parfait. En fait, c'était la
things out beautifully, even if it was a bit laborious, and I spent a lot of time in the film just lying flat on a bed.
De la narration du film, c'était comme un objet de fixation, comme on dit, puisque l'histoire du film, c'est à la fois sur un...
You can see the narrative.
Quand je l'ai vu, je me suis dit c'est primitif.
I thought there was something quite primitive in the story. There's something quite primitive that the
moment où elle rencontre comme ça ce personnage d'André Sauvage,
story refers to.
Porté,
André Sauvage
il est porté par elle comme ça dans une sorte d'idéal.
Is swept away in a sort of an ideal world, which I don't really know very well. That's why I was interested in the film. I was interested to see how a woman could love a man to that extent. So I thought, well, how can I be sort of far from Marion while being very close at the same time? I didn't want to give too many signs of love. You know the secret of the film because you've seen it. It was a very tricky thing to achieve. Of course, when I turned up, the film had been in the making for quite some time. When I finally came onto the set, everything was very calm. Marion and Nicole were very calm. And there I was between these two women, and I just let myself be guided by Nicole. She was very pleased to see me when we finally started filming. She said, Louis, you're here, great. She was always very pleasant. I turned up in the morning, oh, how nice it is to see you, Louis. Even yesterday night, I reached the hotel. She said, oh, great, you're here, lovely.
Alain, juste pour conclure cette conférence de presse, comment définiriez votre tâche de producteur de Nicole Garcia?
How would you define your task as producer?
Vous savez, il y avait un commentateur comme ça qui s'appelait Eugène Sacomano. Et il avait une émission qui disait On refait le match.
C'était son émission.
We'll do the match again. Et il y a un surnom comme ça de Nicole qui refait le match quand même.
And Nicole redoes the match often. She said, here we are, I have this, and I thought, oh my goodness, everything that we decided the evening before is going to be reconsidered. No, not at all. Nicole has doubts, but that's what enables you to progress. I'm a sort of a recipient. I collect her thoughts, her doubts. We've worked a lot together. This is the third film we've done. And we have found ways of quite quickly dispelling doubts. We now are able to find really worthwhile solutions quite quickly together. I watch her going about her work, looking for the right solution, and what I try to do is to be as calm as possible. Of course, it's hard to be calm because she calls everything into question all the time, but what I try to do is to ensure that what she finally decides is the right decision. She's a very great director, and I keep saying to myself that I'm very fortunate to have been chosen to work with her again on another film. Thank you very much, and congratulations once again on this beautifully Romanesque film.